All right. Obsessors, how are you? It's Sarge here, and we have a really good talk today. We've got three guests. We've got Jazz. Jazz is a victim of domestic violence, and she would like to share her story today. Kanat is a motivational speaker, and he's helped organise this today, so good to have you along. And then we've got Jeff, who is on the phone. Jeff, how are you today, mate?
You're doing good, mate.
Yeah, good stuff. And Jeff's actually a reformed perpetrator of domestic violence and would like to share his story, and we're really interested to hear it, Jeff. So glad you could come along, mate.
Yep.
Awesome stuff. So, Kane, we'll call you the K-Man. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've brought us together today.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's really nice to be here. Basically, I work in Brisbane. I'm a motivational speaker. That's my bread and butter.
Yep.
But the reason I'm here is I've lost a child to domestic violence. She died 2018.
Yep.
I didn't know of her death until 2019 because her perpetrator husband took her away.
Yep.
So nobody knew that she had died.
Yes.
So upon hearing this, I said, I've got to do something about this.
Yep.
So I started Venus Foundation.
Yep. Awesome.
And I've got Jazz and Jeff to be, they put the hand up to do this.
Yes.
Because we need to inform and build awareness of people about domestic violence. I've lost a child.
Yeah.
It changes your life.
Oh, look, absolutely. I can't imagine that it wouldn't change everybody's life. So, Kenneth, thanks for letting us know a little bit about yourself. Jazz, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Now, you've been a victim of domestic violence on more than one occasion with your previous partners. Can you tell us a little bit about those situations?
Sure. So, well, firstly, thank you for having me today. This is a great opportunity. So when I was quite young, so 17, I first experienced my very first domestic violence relationship. It was very violent and it led to a lot of traumatic, I guess, flashbacks even today. The first one, it was very, I guess, in your face kind of violent. It wasn't just occasional punching. It wasn't those kind of things. It was more so use of different weapons, different tactics, different kind of ways to control me as such.
So a combination of mental manipulation and aggressive behavior?
Yeah. And also, I guess, one instance as well was very much he put me as a captive in a shed for a period of time just to kind of hold me as his personal property.
Teach you a lesson? Is that what it was about?
So it was my 18th birthday and he didn't want me going out with family or friends for that period. So he decided that to best stop me from doing that, he would put me in a shed for a week.
For a week?
For a week, yes.
When you said a time, I was thinking a few hours. But
no.
Are you serious?
Yes. And that was, I was speaking to his doctor because he had a lot of mental health and health issues and so forth. And it was actually his doctor who said that I needed to seek support and leave him eventually. And that sort of flew up a lot of red flags and that kind of stuff. And that eventually led to me, I guess, building the courage to say, look, this is not working. I need to leave. Yeah. And that actually led to quite a significant event, which actually involved police and a lot of, a huge amount of blood being spilled on his behalf and him being trailed away to the psych ward, and I have never seen him since.
Right.
I ended up moving down to the Gold Coast with my best friend of now 17 years, and that kind of helped me. And then I thought I had kind of just moved past those kind of relationships until a couple of years ago when one just kind of took me by surprise, and it was more mental and emotional abuse where he would gaslight me. He would hide me from my friends, hide me from family. He forced me from disconnecting with my friends and family because he felt that they were bad for me.
Yes.
And then it took for the point where my best friend, she was like, you're not talking to me. This is weird. It's very strange. We talk daily. And so she actually flew me down to Melbourne because she felt that something was very wrong. And that's when I opened up about what had actually happened. There had been a couple of instances where he had punched the wall, punched the bed frame next to my bed because I wouldn't do something that he wanted.
Yeah. So aggressive behavior, not contacting you, but definitely a show of force in front of you too. Yep. So, all right. Well, thank you for that. Now, we're going to move to the other side.
Yeah.
And Jeff, thanks for joining us today. Like we said before, you're phoned in, so we don't have you to look at. But mate, can you tell us a little bit about what situation you got involved with the domestic violence things, and how you came through that?
Yeah, sure. So, with my previous relationship, yes, I got into a relationship. It started off pretty good, and maybe a few months into it, maybe 4 or 5 months into it, I started to become quite abusive. I started off, more like emotional abuse, and then it sort of led into more violence, and then other things, and it got quite worse towards the end of the relationship. But I think when I was reflecting on it over a little while back, it just came back to insecurities and other things like that.
Yep.
And
sorry. No, go. Keep going. So you realized, and so who ended that relationship, or how did that end?
Yeah, so what actually happened, like there was a DV order in place towards the end of the relationship, and then I breached it, and then so I ended up getting incarcerated, and then she moved on, which is totally understandable.
Yep.
And then while I was in jail, I sort of had like a light bulb moment. It was like, I was such a bad human being to the love of my life, essentially.
Yes.
And I really had nothing to lose. I lost my reputation, everything. So I really had to look at myself and make it like a positive change.
And that sounds like that's what you've done. Mate, so you've had some time in jail to reflect on these things, and obviously that's not the most pleasant place to be. So then what's happened? Was there anything that you could do whilst you're in jail before you got out that you could start to help change the way that you looked at relationships and other people?
Yeah, like I was trying to do a program before we were still together, but I think my whole belief systems and stuff like that, it was just really warped. So even though I was trying to get help, the whole relationship the boundaries were already crossed. And I think us breaking up was the best option for both of us.
Yes. I understand, definitely, mate. And since how long ago did you come out of incarceration, if I can ask?
So I went into remand for 9 days in 2018, and then I only just got sentenced last January for 3 months.
Okay. Just 3 months in jail enough time for you to realise you really need to do something about the way you're acting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, and what sort of course was that you've done, or what programs have you done since?
Yeah. So I've done a YFS program. So it's a program through the government. So I've done that 2019, and then I've done another program once I got out of jail, the Circuit Breaker Prevention Program.
Yes,
so
it's that one. Yep.
It's a really good program in regards to perpetrators and stuff like that. Sort of helps them to have a look at themselves and equipping them with the right tools and whatnot.
Would you say, because I know a lot of perpetrators, and not just men, because we need to remember there's female perpetrators out there just as much as there's male victims out there too. So we don't want to just tar men with that brush, although you seem to be like that cliche style of the violent perpetrator that didn't know what you were doing at the time. You couldn't see how it was so self-destructive and destructive to your relationship until it was too late and you lost it all, and then now you realize that. So would you say that you have to go in with an open mind and a willingness to like, you have to know and see what's been happening and accept it and accept the responsibility of your actions before you can move on and start to rebuild?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Because and my question is, how much do you think your parents played in the way that you ended up being the way you are, or way you were?
Because I was always taught as a young kid, never had a woman, so always raised with it. But there was a little bit of violence at home.
Yes.
But I think my ex had a strong personality that didn't give me permission to do what I did. But I think that the boundaries got crossed and different things like that.
Yep. And Kane, you've had a fair bit to do with Jeff.
I have.
Yeah. And so what sort of progress have you seen from an outsider's point of view of how he's traveled?
Jeff, to me, has really taken the time to reflect. And that takes a lot from man to do that, to then also develop a self-awareness. But I call it humility. The humility to know what they've done wrong. And in this area I work with correction services as well, the adult system and the male system, the juvenile system. And I can go and talk about this and that. But when you get someone who's got the same lived experience as these kids and adults, the impact is huge.
Yes.
And for the Venus Foundation, these two people are going to lend themselves to the narrative to now provide people with enough courage to walk out of situations. And it's what Jeff said, it's about self-love.
Yes. And
I work with men and females and children, girls and boys. My program is looking at developing self-love, because when you love yourself, you are then authenticated to love others.
Of course.
So I'm just going to jump in here and just ask Jazz a question. So as a victim of domestic violence, how do you feel hearing someone who has caused domestic violence and been a perpetrator talking about that they're reformed and they've done courses? How does that make you feel? Is it something that, I know you know Jeff, but is it something that you feel you can beat or whatever else?
I definitely think it's something that if they're willing to make that change, I would rather support that than rather support someone who's not willing to change, who doesn't believe that they've made a change in their life or that they've done something wrong or anything like that. It's definitely such a huge spot, especially for example, like the male perpetrators. It's such a sensitive spot to admit that you're wrong, admit that you've done wrong, and be able to open yourself up to a vulnerable spot of saying, I need help. And that's such a big thing that needs to be addressed.
Because we have had a Facebook user, it hasn't come up with their name, saying that I don't believe they can be reformed.
I think that's definitely something that is opened up because a lot of people don't actually heal from their instances where they're a victim. And a lot of people, even I felt like that when I wasn't healing from it. I felt that you can't come back, like you've done it, you can't do that. But I think once you've actually started healing and accepting and, moving past it, like, yes, it's happened. Yes, this is obviously horrible, but you need to move on from those kind of situations and not let it essentially define who you are as a person.
Kana, I'm going to ask you this question. If a perpetrator of domestic violence can't be reformed or can't improve, what's the point of doing any courses? What would be the point of talking about it? Like they should just get castrated, sent to jail, like sent to North Korea, or can we really help these perpetrators of domestic violence find themselves and love themselves, respect themselves, so that they can then love and respect other people and then find happiness, like true happiness? Not yet. Boss, stop it.
Boss. So I want to ask a question, sorry, to guy off camera.
Oh, Jeff, yes.
Jeff.
Yep.
So basically, can I ask you, were you in a situation in your home life? I know that you said earlier that you were told never to hit women, but and you said a little bit of kind of like domestic violence. What did that look like for you? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, so what I saw growing up was, because I come from an island background, so my mum, at times if we did the wrong thing, we'll get a bit of a hiding sort of thing, but it was sort of culturally accepted, and I guess, like us as siblings, we just got used to that and just try not to get on the wrong side of our mother and stuff like that. So
just on what Jeff's saying, and one of the work we're working with young people is that we need to give them not only the self-love, but the skills to cope. If people don't cope, it's a natural reaction. Primary reaction is fight or flight. Males, obviously for the male power, physically, it's fight. But if we can treat young boys and get into their head that there are better coping skills to then prevent that happening. But at the same time, we have to work with the young girls not to get so disempowered to feel like they cannot do things. So you work with both cohorts. And I think this country could change. This country could become a leader in this, because we are losing women one a week. That's one a week is just way too much. Any week.
Can I? Yeah, look, I'm gonna bring this up because I wanted to say this for quite a while. Okay. Yes, one a week. But look what's happened in the last few days. We've lost a family of 3 kids and the suicide of the mother in Melbourne. And then we've had a daughter stab her father up in Townsville. 23-year-old daughter stabbed her, I believe it's her father, 51-year-old, and whatever the circumstances behind that was. The thing is, yes, there's about a 1 woman a week being killed by their partner or ex-partner through domestic violence. There's not as many men being injured or hurt physically, but here's what doesn't get connected. How many men are committing suicide because of their perpetrator female partner or ex-partner that won't allow them to see their children or has mentally manipulated them to a point where they take their own life? It's definitely going to be close to being equal. So men and women are both dying because of domestic violence,
Absolutely.
both at female and male perpetrators, but the man is holding the knife mostly.
Can I just interject there as well? I've actually lost an uncle due to that exact situation where his ex-partner at the time wasn't allowing him to see the kids.
Yes.
She was cheating on him. She pretty much ran off with the children and the new lover.
Yeah.
Ironically, he turned gay after they got together. But my uncle did actually commit suicide due to that exact fact.
And that's so sad.
You know, and
happening.
both my cousins grew up without a father, and that's been since 1997 he passed away, actually.
And that is the extreme ending to a domestic violence situation, with one dying and the other going to jail.
Yeah.
And then the kids suffer. It doesn't matter if the kids could either be dying, like what happened in Melbourne, or they grow up without parents, or they then there's this negative feedback loop where they're starting to, you were just about to say
it becomes a cycle.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a growing statistic. I still work in corrective services. I used to work there for 10 years.
Yep.
Women inmates are growing at an alarming rate. And the rate they're growing is because they are now fighting back. Townsville Correctional Centre, and this is as of 2018, something like 30% of the women inmates were in there for either killing the perpetrator of domestic violence, defending themselves, or injuring.
Yep.
Women are now fighting back, and now we have a growth. There's a spurt. So there's also another cohort, and to be, and I'm going to sound rude and crass. We can't fix the hairy adults. We need to start with generational change.
Yep.
We need to start working with young people. Otherwise, we'll be having this conversation another 20, 50 years.
And it's nothing will change. It was still just getting worse and worse. I think we
the question is, though, how do we break this cycle, right? So we know that 1 woman a week dies from domestic violence, but 45 men per week are committing suicide. We don't know what the reason for that is. We can't statistically say, but how do we break this cycle to then make sure that our boys aren't being domestically violent and our girls are empowered enough to say, no, this is not on?
Sorry, I just want to interject and add to that. And this is one of the biggest things that it comes down to is what
the microphone's not on.
How rude, she cut me off. So, like, to add to that, like, literally one of the biggest things is what is people's boundary, right? So to me, like, and I know that I just heard Jeff say a little bit of like domestic violence. To you, what does that mean? Like a little bit, like, I mean, and this is what it comes down to, because some people don't understand that they're in domestically violent situations, controlling situations, physically violent. So it can go.
If you look at a global picture of this country, Well, I can't remember what's the word. It starts misogynistic.
Misogynistic.
Well, English is my third language, so I apologise. Misogynistic.
Misogynistic.
That word. Now, if you've ever watched Parliament, you've watched the Prime Minister perpetuate violence against women. There was a story where the Prime Minister, they were talking about, and the reporters wanted to hear from a female. The Prime Minister, under the laws and principles of domestic violence, cut her off and did not give her voice. We are shaping a nation. You listen to Parliament, the way they carry on, they bully each other. Like children.
Yeah.
Like children.
They're school children.
And then children, we allow that. As a country, we allow that. We say, oh, that's, it becomes the norm.
When it's question time in Parliament, I can't believe that it's a zoo. I can't believe these are the leaders of our country because they act like morons. They act like absolute imbeciles.
And then you look at our National Liberal Party, and this is political. You look at the National Liberal Party, women are leaving in droves because the males are bullying the females.
I think that's across all the parties, though. I don't think that's like one party.
Microphone, mate.
I think it's across all parties. I don't think that's one particular party. Like, we're watching what's happening right now that's happening on a global scale. I'm not going to make it about that.
No, that's okay.
Right. So there's so many, like the silencing and censorship, not just of women, but everybody right now. Anybody that wants to speak out against anything that doesn't fit the actual narrative, because I don't think society can cope with the amount of changes. We are in times now where things are changing at a rapid rate. And people are like, hang on a second, we've only just adapted to this change. So go on, sorry.
But I was going to say, I don't...
So we still have Jeff here.
Yeah, cool. We'll get back to Jeff really shortly.
I disagree with you. I'll argue the point that there's one party that is making an effort to have more females into roles, into senior roles. Now, I'm not saying that no one's perfect, but if you look at the National Cabinet, there is 3 females or 2. You look across the House, they have 7 people who could be potentially ministers and leaders, because we are sending a subliminal message to our girls to saying, you're not good enough. Kamala Harris is now the vice president. Her narrative is, you're a girl, you can do it. They're changing it. The narrative in this country, you look at New Zealand, she is an amazing prime minister, a woman. This state.
And New South Wales? New South Wales and Queensland, they're both run by women.
Can I just say that actually within the federal government, there's actually a lot of females.
Yeah, I just want to jump. I just want to jump in on this one as well and say, my first thing to say is that, and I get very passionate about politics, and I would much rather have a qualified man than an unqualified female. I don't think we should be saying that, they should get in just because they have a vagina, but that's my opinion. Right. But I've got Chloe Munro here who said, unfortunately, females are still lesser in many male eyes. I feel like from a young boy, men are told it's okay to pinch or punch a girl you like and giggle about it, which is just portraying violence in the older generation. So, I mean, Jazz, you've been in this, when a little boy hits you at school or whatever, your mum will say to you, it's just because he likes you. What is this teaching our children? I would be interested to hear everyone's.
I think my little sister cops a lot of bullying, unfortunately. And, I hear a lot of the parents at the school say, maybe it's because they want to be friends with you. What do they be friends? They want to, they like you or whatever. And something I'm really proud about my dad being is he's a strong, my dad's studying to be a counsellor. So he's really strong in saying, no, if people like you, they'll respect you and be kind to you. If they don't treat you with respect or kindness, they don't like you. And, in our household, we don't discipline in harsh ways. We'll sit down and talk about things. We'll sit there and discuss things in, this is how I felt. This is how you felt, how can we come to an agreement? And so I think it's something that needs to be taught within schools, is that you don't need to be violent or be mean portray that you don't like someone or that you like someone. You can say it with words.
Well, I want to come back to Jeff with this because he's been very patient on the other end of the phone. Wish you were here, buddy. So the question was how like what could have happened to you for you to have not gone down the path that you know, what can we do for our children to teach them not to go down your path?
Yeah, I think, you know, because I was sort of reflecting, and I was sort of sharing with Jazz and Kanan, you know, they don't really teach that sort of stuff at schools, you know. So if they taught that at schools, how to treat a woman and
how women should treat men too. You know, it's a two-way street, yeah?
Yeah, like how to deal with anger, you know, and it's like some people, they just don't really know how to deal with anger. Because that was, like, you know, like I didn't really know a good example of anger. And I was like, oh, you know, if you're angry, you chug something. Because how does anybody know that you're angry?
You're allowed to be angry. It's an emotion that we're allowed to have. But what is your reaction to that anger and how do you express it? That's the thing, right? So, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what do you think? So you've talked about school, but it has to start at the home too. And we have to break that negative cycle of what our parents have done. We have to go, no, that was wrong. I'm not going to teach my kids to do that. I'm going to bring my kids up a different way to respect men and women and different cultures and different sexualities. You know, would you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Do you have children yourself?
No.
Would you like them?
Yeah, in the future. Yeah.
Loaded question. No. And absolutely, like what you have learnt, you have reformed, you have come out the other side. The fact that you've come on here as a perpetrator or, you know, someone who's perpetrated in the past, I think is very brave because there's so many ignorant people out there that will just say you could never change. You're always going to be a perpetrator and like have a go at you. And they're, you know, we want to change the people. We want to change those people's minds as well.
I've got a question for Jeff. Sorry. So my question is, what got you to the point of being violent with your partner? Because I mean, I've personally been in many relationships that have never ever ended in, we've had arguments, we've done this, that, and the other, but I've never been hit or smacked or, you know, you get heated. But what for you was I guess the catalyst in saying, do you know what, I'm going to, I don't know what you did, but I'm going to raise my fist or I'm going to smack this or I'm going to choke or whatever it was that you did. Why?
Yep.
Yeah, like, because it happened about 6 months into the relationship, and I think it was, you know, it just came down to insecurity. And it was, you know, she had a really strong personality, and I felt like I didn't have a voice in the relationship. And then the boundaries were crossed, and I thought, you know, that was the only way. And then since I did that, like one small thing, you know,
snowballed,
pushing her. What's that, sorry?
Did it snowball, Jeff? Once you'd done it the first time, it sort of...
So the next time it was a little bit worse, and then it just got a little bit worse from that. And then, you know, the honeymoon phase will be making up, and then...
Yeah,
you know, just...
And she hung around because she thought, oh, no, he's apologized, because you would have apologized a bunch of times and said, you'll never do it again, you're sorry, and then you then did it again. Yeah.
Was this the first time you've ever been violent in a relationship?
Yeah, my first time. Yeah.
Yep.
And what I mean, I just, like, for me, I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in violence at all. So if anyone was to ever raise their fist to me, that would be it. And I'm like Jazz. I've never been in a relationship where it has become, so I don't know. Like, I don't know what happens, but you know, Jazz, like, why did you stay? But Jeff, how do you get to the point where you physically hurt somebody? Like, you're so angry that you have to take that out physically. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. So I need you to explain it to me.
Yeah, but I think there was, you know, like a little bit of abuse from both sides, you know, to be honest, you know, like, you know, there's a bit of emotional abuse from her side, and I guess I got a bit, you know.
Would you say that you both worked to your strengths? She was more of a thinker and a mental manipulator, and that was her strong suit, and your strong suit was the fact that you're just physically bigger and you could use your physical power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
And also, it's the female brain is it functions a lot higher than males. They can articulate it better. Men, we struggle to a point where keeping up with the conversation, it's like, no, you can't do that. Boom. And it's a fight or flight. So it's a matter of, it's a matter of identifying how you recognize. And Jeff and I, we spoke, I think the first teleconference we had, you identify because when I work with people in the corrective services, people actually identify, because when you get angry, something happens to your stomach, you feel it. And so we get people to then recognize, now when that happens, what do? I need to, because in the corrective services, we did a program called Walk Away, Cool Down. You feel that, instead of going into rage, you feel it. You feel it in your stomach, anger, and you walk away and cool down. Now, we had some people go back to the Aboriginal community. These men, I work with young men who were so happy to get out, obviously, but they had some coping strategies. I said, are you guys okay? I said, yeah, brother, we're done. We're ready to go back in our community and be better men. Because when the missus goes off, I'm going to just walk away, cool down. I said, good on you, brother. 3 weeks later, he's back in the big house. I said, what happened, brother? He said, well, I went out there and we started, and I got angry. And then I said, I'm going to walk away. But she didn't know what he was doing. Mm. So when he was walking away to try to cool down, she was like, where are you going? Come back here. And it just exploded. So from that, we realized we had to work not only with rehabilitation of the person, the male in the big house, we had to go to the community to provide the coping skills there. So we did walk away, cool down in the community.
Yep.
So very quickly, Can I just say that, is it safe to say that with perpetrators that not always, because I'm not stripping that away from any victims, that it's always two to tango? Yeah.
I'm going to make a point here. The state government, we don't call it domestic violence. Domestic violence isn't just between two. It's actually domestic family violence.
Yep.
We have violence against children.
Yes. We
have violence against grandparents. It's not DV, it's DFV, domestic family violence. So it's not two to tango, it's a lifestyle. And I've got to say that it is a symptom of poverty. Poverty is
and education, like as in lacking of education.
Well, poverty. Poverty is responsible for poverty. I work in the corrections. I have people say to me, brother, do you know what it's like to go hungry for 2 weeks? I don't. They had to break in.
How to go? We went hungry for a week, locked in a shed. Yeah. So look, we're going to have to wrap this up.
We are, but I've just got one more question for Jazz, and you answer it however you want to answer it. But as I was saying to Jeff, for me, like I can't even imagine if someone raised their fist to me, like that would be it, let alone going through the motions of being in a DV relationship, not letting them, obviously you didn't let them lock you in a shed for a week, but how do you, like, what is going through your mind when that is happening to not just go, hang on a minute, like, are you stuck financially? Are you stuck emotionally? Like, what's going through your mind?
There's different types of it. So there's different types where you are financially stuck. There's emotional side of things where you're either terrified of the person and whether or not they'll find you. You're terrified of where you'll go, who you have to support you. And there's other aspects of you. Sometimes you focus on the positives. So the first DV I went through, it was very much of I didn't have the greatest upbringing with my family and I didn't really like being at home. So it was sort of an avenue of where I could go. And I liked being able to get away from the house. So it was, I guess, an avenue of what I wanted. So I would focus on the positives. And then it sort of grew into fear of him.
Did you grow up with family violence?
No, it wasn't violent in my household or anything like that. It was more so emotional, if anything, but it was more so in the aspect of belittling people, but it wasn't violent at all in our house.
So when you then got into your relationship, did it start as belittling, which was kind of like normal for you because that's what you've grown up with, and then it turned into this?
It was different because it wasn't something I had experienced. The first one was very much it was pretty much fine for the first month, and then from there it just went downhill. It was very controlling, would grab my arm, kind of hold me tight, like pull me closer, those kinds of things. And because I hadn't seen a stable relationship in my home life, I just assumed that was normal. I didn't really see anything different. But then when it got more and more violent, that's when it was like, okay, this is not normal. The second relationship, because it was emotional and mental abuse, that's where I was like, maybe this is normal. I don't know, because that's what I received at home again, essentially, because it was just gaslighting. It was like, no, you're wrong. You can't challenge me. You need to just believe what I've said. And because I have terrible memory due to health reasons, it was more so a case of, are you sure you've said that to me, when I know for a fact I've said that? And it was just questioning me constantly to make myself question myself.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up, Nat. So firstly, I want to thank Jeff for joining us. It's a very brave move to come on and admit that you're a perpetrator, but also let people know that you can get yourself out of this.
And can we just state that Jeff actually was willing to come on camera, but due to internet connection issues, he couldn't be here. So I just want to state to everyone that it's not like he's hiding behind the phone or anything. He was willing to be here, but he just had to be on the phone because of connection.
I'm gonna see if Jeff will come in and do a one-on-one with me, and we'll get nitty-gritty.
Well, we have had a lot of people saying thanks for the conversation. It needs to be
absolutely.
continued.
Absolutely. So we're going to part 2 with this, and we're going to meet face-to-face, Jeff, okay?
Yep.
Beautiful, mate. Well, thank you for coming. Jazz, thank you so much. You've told your story a few times, but we're getting it out to more and more people, and we think you're very brave too to be able to share that with us. Kaynat, you're a legend, mate. And I can't wait to do some more podcasting with you, because you're as smooth as Barry White, man. You're like you got a voice for radio. That's for
you
sure.
gotta love that, mate.
Absolutely. So, and you've got your Full Black. That's your business.
Yeah, full black motivation, and we talk about empowering people, because this world will take away your shit.
Absolutely.
This world will take away your power.
Yep.
You need to look yourself in the mirror and look deep down in your eyes. It'll take a while, but you need to look at the mirror and say, I am amazing. I am worthy. And you will then be on the road to healing.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, team. And just before we go, I just want to say, if you feel that there is something happening in your life that shouldn't be, emotional abuse, and that 1-800-RESPECT is definitely something you should call. And we're going to end it there. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next podcast.